Notion for this constructor in this session. So in today's session, we will discuss in detail that what basically a constructor is, how it is an important feature if we consider about the object-oriented programming language. So as you know that we consider that Java as a object-oriented programming language. The constructor has a main role in this particular part. Okay, so constructor is simply a simple block of code that we can just represent as we discussed in the case of methods. Okay, so in the previous lecture we have we have discussed regarding the methods part. So same for the constructor also, that it is a block of code that works similar to the method. Okay, so when we require this particular constructor, it is usually called when we create the instance of that particular class. Okay, when we create an instance of a particular class, or when we create an object of a particular class, at that time this particular constructor will be called. Okay, so what happened that as we know that we allocate memory to the object. Okay, so when we allocate this memory to the object, when we use a new operator in order to just call that particular object or just initialize the value of that particular object. Okay, so we can start with like this, that constructor is basically a block of code that works similar to the method. Secondly, it is called when the instance of class is created. So what we mean by instance of class, that is when we need to create the object of that particular class. Okay, so when that particular object of the class is called, at that time this particular constructor will be called. So at the time of calling constructor, memory for the object is allocated in the memory. Okay, so what happened that when we call this particular constructor, so as you know that object occupies some memory using with the help of that new operator. So object will just refer that whatever the memory that object will be allocated will be automatically given to that particular constructor also. Okay, so this is how we can just define that particular constructor, that at the time of calling the constructor, memory for the object is allocated in the memory. Next thing is that we can also say that constructor is a special type of a method. Okay, so this is what a special type of a method which is used to initialize the object. So we can just define this constructor as a method only, but this method is basically a special type of a method that we can represent. That basically we use this for initializing the object in a class. Okay, so this is a special type of a method which is used to initialize the object, and in our program at least one constructor will be created when the object is first. Either you defined it or you not define it, but by default there will be a single constructor in your this particular if you are using that particular classes and object over there, so at least one constructor will be created when the object is there. Either you define that particular constructor explicitly or not, but by default one constructor will be created at the time object is okay. So we can say that what type of a constructor we are calling at that time, that is a default constructor. Okay, so this is your default constructor. So this is your default constructor if there is a no constructor available. If there is no constructor available, so default constructor is called if there is a no constructor in that particular if no particular constructor is available in that particular class. Okay, so Java compiler by default we can say that this is the duty of the Java compiler that provides you the default constructor. So who provides this default constructor? That is the duty of your Java compiler. Okay. So we have basically two types of a constructor that we use. One is a no argument constructor and the Another one is a parameterized constructor. Another one is a parameterized constructor. So these are some of the points that you must remember while we start with the concept of constructor in case of the Java. So I just give you a brief overview of all these points. That this constructor is basically a block of code that works similar to the method part. So it is called when the instance of class is created. So when we can call this particular block of code, when an object will be created in the class. At the time of calling the constructor, memory for the object is allocated in the memory. So whenever you will call that particular constructor over there, so at that time memory will be allocated for that particular object in the memory. So basically, constructor is a special type of a method which is used to initialize the object. So constructor means to construct something. Okay, so what we mean by the word construct, that is used to initialize something. Okay, so this is a special type of a method which is used to initialize the object. Okay, so at least one constructor is created when object is called. So by default in your code, if you're using this classes and object, so at that time at least one constructor will be called at there. Okay, so what is that particular constructor that will be called? That is a default constructor. So default constructor will be there if there is a no constructor available. So that means that if you're not explicitly defining any type of a constructor, but one constructor, that is default constructor, will be defined. So Java compiler that provides a default. This is the duty of the Java compiler that will provide you the default constructor. And the last one is that we have basically two types of a constructor there. One is a no argument constructor and another one is a parameterized constructor. Fine. So this is regarding the brief introduction about the constructor part. And the next question is that there are some rules that we must follow in order to use the constructor in the code. Okay. So there are some rules for creating Java constructor. Okay. So the first rule is that the constructor name must be same as that of class. First rule is that the constructor name must be same as that of the class. Okay. So we can say that a constructor name must be same as that of the class name. Secondly is that the second rule is that constructor have no explicit return type. So constructor has no explicit return types. So there should be no return type for this particular constructor. Okay. So a Java constructor cannot be abstract, static, final, and synchronized. Now these are some of the terms that we will be doing in our like the lectures that we will be having. So these are some of the keywords that we will be discussing further in our lectures. But meanwhile, just for the remembering, remember all these points. That Java constructor cannot be abstract, static, final, and synchronous. So when one by one we will be doing all these topics. So at that time we will explain that why all this Java constructor cannot be abstract, static, final, and synchronous. Okay. So major two rules are there. That is that the constructor name must be same as that of the class name. Secondly, constructor has no explicit return type. So we are not supposed to provide any type of a return type to the constructor. And the third point is that, third rule is that the Java constructor cannot be abstract, static, final, and synchronous. So one by one, in the subsequent sessions, we will discuss each and every these keywords over there, and we will discuss why a constructor cannot be final, synchronized, abstract, or static. Fine. So this was all about the introductory part of the constructor. Now we will move towards this coding portion, for which I have to share my screen with you. So just wait for a while. Okay, students, so we will discuss one by one all the different types of a constructor that we are having in Java. So the very first constructor is that is the default constructor. So we are writing like this: default constructor. And so the first one is a default constructor. So here, what we will do, we will just create a program here to create and call that particular default constructor. Now let's suppose I am taking one class here. So let's my class name is, I just write like this: default constructor. This is the name of my class. And under this, I will create a default constructor here. So I can write like this, just for your reference, that creating default constructor. Okay, so here what will happen, like what is the first rule of the default constructor is that its name should be same as that of the class name. So what I will do, what is the name of my class name? That is DEF CONS. So I will just write this name DEF and CON. So this is the small abbreviation that I have given for the default constructor. So constructor always behave like a method. So I will have to use this brackets with it. And plus the third rule is that it should not have any return type. So see, I am not giving it any type of a return type over here. So simply what I am doing, I am writing like this: system dot out dot println, and here I can just write like this: default constructor created. So I'm writing like default constructor created. So this is a simple program by which we are just seeing that how we can create this default constructor here. Okay. Now we will define the main method. So this is the default constructor that we have defined. And now we will define the main method here. And in this main method, we will be using that. As you know that we need to call that public static void main here. So we will be writing like this: public static void main, and we will pass that arguments here. Okay. And here we will call that particular default constructor. So when this default constructor is initialized, when we create the object of that particular class. So we are writing like this. So in order to create the object of that particular class, we must specify the class name here. So like this, this is my class name, and this is the object that I have created, equal to new So this is default constructor. Okay. So this is the basic implementation of the default constructor. So I am just saving this program. And I am going to share my another screen with you. That is the command prompt screen. So now I'm just going to share my screen with you. So here you can see that I will first compile this particular program dot Java. So now compilation is fine. Now I will run this program. So here you can see that is, so you can see this particular message has been printed here. So this is how we can implement this default constructor here. So I just share my screen with you. So here this was the program that you can see, and here you can see that we have simply created the default constructor here. So it is also known as a default constructor, or we also say it as a no argument constructor. Okay, so under this particular part, you can see that I have simply printed this statement, that is default constructor has been created. And in the main method, what I have done, that I have created the object of this particular class. And as you know that how constructor is called, that when we will create the object of that particular class. So memory will be allocated to that particular constructor also. Okay, so now we will go to the next part. So here we will discuss that how we can create a parameterized constructor here. Okay, so next program is basically to create a parameterized constructor. So we can simply write like this Java parameterized constructor. Okay, so this is Java parameterized constructor. So here we can have that class, and so let's suppose I am writing like this para constructor. Let's suppose I have given this particular name, and under this is a class name that I have given, and here I will just like I need to add some particular record here. So I'm using two things, int id, and the another one is a string name. Okay, so another thing that we will be using here, that is a string name. Okay, so in this particular class, what I have done, that I have just use this two variables here, that is the int id and the int name. Now I will be creating a parameterized constructor here. So for that, the first rule say that we must have same name as that of the class name. So, and that is true without the any return type. So I will not be using any type of return type here. So I have written para constructor, and here I will pass the arguments because we are using a parameterized constructor here. So I just simply refer it as creating parameterized constructor. Okay, so we are writing like this, parameterize constructor. So here you can write like this, int I string and. Okay, so that is int I string and that we will be using here, and here you can see. So I'm okay. So here you can see that int I string n will be there. These are the two parameters that I have taken. So what I will do, I will just allocate the value of these parameters to the above variable. So we are writing like this, it equal to I and name will be equal to n, right? So these are the we can say that constructor that we are having, that is a parameterized constructor. Now let's suppose I also want to take some particular method also here. So this is the class, and under this particular class I have created one of the parameterized, this constructor is there, and let's suppose I need to display the values also, for which I am using another method over here. Now this is void display. Now this is a method, this is not the constructor here. Okay, so the first how you can distinguish between a method and the constructor is that it's not compulsory for a method to have the same name as that of the class name. Okay, so but for the constructor it is compulsory that its name should be same as that of the class name. So we are writing like this, system dot out dot println. Okay, so here we can have id plus and that is name. Okay, so we are just closing this particular part over here. Okay, now we will be using that public static void main here. So we are writing like this, public static void main, and the main method that we are using here. And here we will pass that string arguments. So we are writing like this, string arguments. Right. So here we are just we will just create the object and we will pass the value. So we will create objects and pass the values here. Okay, so let's suppose what how we can create that object over here. So for that I need to have that class name. So that is para constructor. Let's suppose this is the class name equal to new, and this again the name of my class, para constructor here, and this is again the name of my class. So I can simply write like this 1 2, and the name could be any name can I can give. That is, let's suppose I have given Java, and I will close this part. Okay, so let's suppose I just create another object over here. So I'm writing like this, s2 equal to new para constructor, and let's suppose I give the value like this, that is C plus plus. Right. So these are some of the values that I have created an object and I have passed some values to it. Now directly all these values will we can say that these values will move further, and now we will call, now by this we have called this parameterized constructor. right? So by creating all this object, we have automatically that parameterized constructor will be called here, because it will just tell you that parameters with the values. So like here you can see that what values that we are passing, like int I and string n. So here also we have passed the same values. So we have called that particular constructor here. Okay, so now we need to call the method also. So there was also one method that we have used in that class. So here we can use that particular method here. So we can write like this. That is the s1 dot. So that is display. Okay, so that is s1 dot display here. And again, the object name is s2 dot display. So again, this we are having that values here. Okay. Okay. So we will close all these brackets here. So let's save this program. So what was the name of my program? That is Para Constructor. So it is just a simple abbreviation that I have given. Dot Java. Okay. So I just so this was our program. So here you can see that we have just saved this program, and now I will simply run this part. So I will share my command prompt screen with you. So here you can see that JavaScript dot Java. So this is how I am compiling this program. So now I will run this part. So you can see that automatically when we initialize that particular object, so my parameterized constructor will be called there. See, so it is just displaying all these values because with the help of this object, we have called that display method also. Okay, so this is how we can refer to this particular parameterized constructor here, right? And now there is another topic in this constructor part, that is a how we can overload a particular constructor. Okay, so constructor overloading is also there. So in Java, basically, constructor, as we know that constructor just behave like a method only, right? But that is, but the rule is that it should have same name and it should work without any return type. Okay, so it can also be overloaded, as we have seen that in the case of overloading methods also. So constructor overloading in Java is basically a technique where we can have more than one constructor with different parameter list. Okay, so we are having one constructor with different parameter lists. So what will happen that they are arranged in such a way that whenever your constructor will perform the execution, okay, so constructor will perform a different task by just referring to the different parameters on which it is working. Okay, so all this, how if we are having, as you know, that constructor has same name as that of the class, but still we are saying that we can overload that constructor. Okay, so we can overload that constructor. That means that we can have more than one type of a constructor in a particular program. But how we can differentiate all these constructor? That is by the number of a parameter and its types. Okay, so whatever the parameters that we will pass in that particular constructor, we will see what is the total number, that is either two parameters are there or three parameters there, and what is their type. So with the help of a program, that will be more clear to you. So I am just again going to share my command prompt screen with you. And here we will discuss that how we can use this particular constructor overloading concept. Okay, so constructor overloading, first of all, is what that, like we can say that we can overload this constructor by usually having a technique where we can have more than one constructor with different parameters list. Okay, so that is the concept of constructor overloading. So let's start with the program. So here you can see that we are having class constructor. So let's suppose I am giving this name overload. Okay, so here again, let's suppose I am using two variables here, that is ID and another one is string name. String name. Okay, and again I can have another parameter here, that is int age. Okay, now we will create a two argument constructor here. So in that particular constructor part, you can see in order to create a constructor, we must have same name as that of the class name. So we are writing like this: overload, constructor overload. Constructor, that is overload. So here we will pass two arguments here, like int I. So let's suppose these are this is the first parameter, and the another part that we will use here, that is string n. So this is another parameter that we are having. Fine. So here what I am doing, that I am just allocating all this value of I and n to ID and name. So I'm writing like this: ID equal to I. So and the another one is the name equal to n. Right. So this is the constructor that we have created with the same name as that of the class name with two parameters. Right. Now I will create another constructor here with three parameters. Okay, so I am writing like this: constructor overload. Okay, so that is constructor overload here, and here we can have int I and string n, int a. Okay, so now this is the constructor having three parameters. So what we will do here, we will again allocate the values of all these parameters to that particular variable. So we are writing like this: I equal ID equal to I, and another one is name equal to n, and the third one is age equal to a. Okay. Next is void display. So we are having that system dot out dot println. So here we will just simply display that values here. So we are having like this: system dot out dot println. So we can write like this: ID, and we'll give the space here, and then we have name. Okay, so name will be there, and again we have that age. Okay, so this is the particular form, that display method in which we are using that particular ID. Okay, So here you can see that we have created, we are just discussing the concept of constructor overloading here. So I can just give it a heading, that is constructor overloading. Okay, so in this constructor overloading, what we have done, we have simply first created a class over here with these three variables that we are using, ID, name, and the age. Now we have created two constructor over here, two parameterized constructor that we have created, one with two parameters and another one is a three parameters. Okay, so here what we have done, we have simply passed the I and the N part, that is ID and the name part. So another here we have passed the ID, name, and the age also. So this is the case, and in the third part, you can see we have simply mentioned the display method here. So in that display method, we are just printing the values over there. Okay, so let's see that now we will, what we will do, we will use that public static void main. Okay, so here string arguments, and here you can see again I will create the object for this particular class. So we are having like this, that is constructor overload. So that was the name of my class. So let's suppose I created s1 equal to new constructor overload. That is the name of my class. Okay, so let's suppose I am giving the value 1, and here I can give anything name, just I can just give this Java. Okay, so again I have another constructor overload. So I will create another object here, that is s2 equal to new, and we are having this constructor overload, and here I will call the second constructor here with three parameters. So what I will write over here, 22. Okay, so then we have that, let's suppose I am having C++. So I'm just writing like this, and again I can give in the age part, I can give any type of a value over here. Let's suppose I have given this 12 value. Okay, so here I will be calling that display method. So I'm writing like this, display, and again we are having s2 dot display. Okay, so this was all about that how we can overload a particular constructor here. Okay, so okay, this is the just the value that we are passing. Okay, so these are the value that we are passing here. So first of all, by this particular constructor, that is this particular first constructor, what will happen, that your it is having two arguments with it, that is 111 and another one is the name. So it will call this particular constructor, your first one. So in the another case where we are passing these three arguments, so that 22 is any type of a value that I have given, and that is in the form of a ID, and this is the string name, and here I was referring the age. So let's suppose I have given that it is like I haven't mentioned, so if I mention some particular name here, so for that, like I just simply mention that Rohit here, and with its age and its ID, and here I just change the name to this, let's suppose I have given any name here, so that will refer the age one. So what constructor overloading says that if you are having more than one constructor in your particular that source, so what it will so it will just check the arguments with it. So whatever the arguments, number of an argument and the type of the arguments also. Okay, so type means the data type that you are telling. So here what you are doing, that you are having that 11 is the integer type and this one is your string type. So it will refer to this part. Again, we are having this particular part, that is 22. That will be the integer part. The string will be this, and the A will be referring to the age part. So it will be referring to the age part. Right. So I just save this program. So here, what I will do, I will just name the constructor overload dot Java. Okay. So I have saved this program. Now I will share my command prompt screen with you. So that is Java constructor overload. So this is the name that I have given. So I just come. Oh, I just need to write that Java C here. Just wait for a while. So the very simple. So again, I just compile this program. Now it's fine. So I will run this part. Okay. So see, you can see the output over here. Okay, now you can see that it is using the display portion here, right? So I haven't mentioned any age for in the first case. So by default, it is giving you the 0 value here. Okay, because in the display part, we have use all the 3 options here. Okay, so this is how you can refer it. If you are not interested in showing all these these parameters, so you can create another different displays for also for the different type of a constructor that you are using. Okay, so that is up to your wish. But in my case, I haven't mentioned. I have mentioned the display board part, all the 3 parameters. So that's why I haven't mentioned in this particular constructor this value. So it is giving you the 0 value. Okay, so this was all about that constructor that we are having and how we can use this constructor part. And also the concept, one more concept is there, that is a constructor overloading, right? So this was all about that we need to discuss about the constructor.